I'm Chris Williamson from Weston Williamson Architects. Andrew Weston, Steve Humphreys and myself all studied together at Leicester School of Architecture. It was quite a practical course, you had a very good grounding in design, but also in the way buildings went together as well. The first job I had was I went with my portfolio to New York, and by lunchtime I'd got a job in an architect's office and found somewhere to live, and I thought it was a magical place. It was the boldest thing I'd done since I was 7, but it kind of made me think I should be a bit more bold. I was in New York for 9 months and probably would have stayed a bit longer, but I wanted to get back and finish being an architect. And also being an architect in America is a lot different to being an architect here. When I did finally finish at Leicester, I went to work at Michael Hopkins, and that was a fantastic experience. It was a great place to work. One of the most important things I did while I was at Michael Hopkins was do a part-time evening course, a master's degree in project management. So, because I think when you go to work for a very design-based architect, you're sort of a bit divorced from the construction industry. Most of the contracts were contract management, so you'd get somebody like Bovis or Langs doing all the nitty-gritty, shouting at the other subcontractors, the thing that the architect normally does. So doing a different course with different people helped me learn what other people are looking for. So when you're starting your own office, you kind of know how other people see you and what they want in an architect, which I think is important. You know, it's not good enough just to know how to design. You've got to know how to satisfy a client and what they're looking for. The thing that made us start our own practice really was a lack of a career structure. When you're working at a design-based office, sometimes there's not a career path that you can see. So after about 5 years, we decided we would see how we got on our own. Andrew and I had been doing competitions together in the evenings, and Andrew was working at Richard Rogers and we were living close together, and after a while we just wanted to try and match the salaries. In those days we weren't earning an awful lot, so we just wanted to match the salaries that we had, but doing our own work. It was small scale stuff, but it was interesting and exciting because we were doing it for ourselves. It's grown slowly, to be honest. I mean, we started off in Andrew's spare bedroom and moved out of there when we had 2 or 3 assistants, and we rented an office in Fulham next door to a client who we were working for at the time, and we were there for 10 years, and then we decided to build our own office. So we've grown slowly. We've never borrowed any money. We've always grown as and when we've got more projects. And now there's 50 of us here, and we've just opened an office in Kuala Lumpur, and there's 10 people there. At the moment, we tend to specialise on transport projects. That's not necessarily by design. Over the last few years, all the transport projects we had have all gone ahead, and a lot of the other projects we had have gone by the wayside. So at the moment, probably 60–70% of our work is transport-related projects. When we first set up in business, we just did whatever projects came along, really, and then we were in an exhibition at the RIBA called 40 Under 40, an exhibition of 40 young architects, and at that exhibition Josie Manser did an article on us for the RIBA journal, and she said, what do you want to do in the next 5 or 10 years? And your natural reaction is, well, whatever comes along. But she told us that we could be a bit more proactive. We should sort of focus on what we wanted to do, and I think that's not always a very easy thing to do. So we did competitions and schemes for things that we wanted to do. So we would do competitions we did a transport project, for instance. It was in Venice, and the client for London Underground came and saw us because he'd seen that published. So one thing leads to another. So I think you can, if you do look at where you want to be in 5 or 10 years' time, although you might not have the clients, you can sort of just do interesting schemes. Now we're doing bigger projects and probably more exciting projects, but our journals love to find out what young architects are doing, and you know, it was easier to get published when we were young than it is now. I'm a great believer in making plans. I know a lot of people frown on that or think it's stupid, but I plan for everything. I plan my day, I plan my week, I plan my weekend, and I make lists of everything I want to do. But I think it's important to plan because it helps you decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But I think you also have to be flexible. I mean, life isn't like that. This is probably the 5th or 6th recession or economic downturn that we've seen while we've been in business. And you kind of get used to it. You kind of know what to do. You shrink the expenditure, and you can also, you know, do things to create work. You have to be a bit more inventive. But this particular economic downturn seems to be going on a lot longer than the last, and that's what's making this a bit more edgy. Is, you know, in the past there used to be a slump every sort of 5 or 6 years, and it used to last a year or 18 months, and then you'd be back up running again. This one is particularly hard, I think, and it's hard for the young people qualifying now because there just isn't the work around. But I think there are certain things, you know, times weren't brilliant when we qualified, and you know, you just have to be patient. And I think it's, you know, it's like the Premier League. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you have to think where you want to be by the time you retire. And I think most people get to where they're going to go anyway. It might just take a bit longer or take a different path, but you get there eventually. When we first set up, we were excited doing small projects, and they were very exciting things, and we used to make things up and do competitions and do projects that we just used to invent just to get publicity or get into an exhibition or something. And you know, there's a lot of disappointments, a lot of frustration. I mean, I tried to get my son to be an architect, or he could see how frustrating it was. He would always say, "What happened to that project you were doing?" He'd say, "Well, the client sold the site and it didn't go ahead," and he stopped asking in the end because, you know, but the ones that do go ahead are fantastic. But I think that's the thing you have to cope with being an architect, is the disappointments, and it's how you cope with those. I wish I'd relaxed a bit more when I was younger, because, you know, you have to enjoy it. It's a journey, and you have lots of disappointments. But you know, it's how you cope with the disappointments that you still get there in the end if you've got that tenacity. When we set up, we just wanted to match the salary that we were earning at the offices we had been working at, and we tried to do anything that would get us a job. Get us. We've tried mail shots. We've tried cold calling. We've had exhibition stands and trade fairs, tried to get editorials, and tried everything really. And some of them worked. I mean, some of you're just about to give up. You're thinking, this is the 5th mail shot I've sent out, and you know, you're sending photographs of your last project to people, and you know, nobody ever replies. But then we got a reply from a Dutch fashion company and ended up doing 3 or 4 projects for them. So you never know what's going to work and what's not, and you just have to keep trying. Just tried everything really, but you know, it's important. I mean, David Chipperfield says you choose your own level of entry, and you can either go to work for somebody you don't want to work for, or you keep on doing what you want, trying what you want to do, and try and, you know, choose your own level of entry when you get that opportunity. Yeah, but it's tough. I realise it's tough at the moment. I'd make exactly the same mistakes if I have made mistakes. I mean, I'm not that reflective. I think if I'd have chosen to do graphic design at university instead of architecture, I think I would have been in about the same place that I am now, probably. You know, I think you get to where you're going to go if you know, eventually. The thing we look for when we're interviewing somebody is a bit of enthusiasm and excitement and spark. I mean, if you've got a 2-1 or a first or even a 2-2, you know, it doesn't seem to make any difference. I mean, that's not something we look for. We don't look at, oh, he's got a first class or she's got a first class honours, she must be really good. I mean, it's just enthusiasm and interest and somebody that can talk through the project. I mean, some people have got fantastic portfolios, but they can't explain the scheme. So, you know, we're looking for people that will be good in 5 years' time, not necessarily brilliant now. At any one time, we're looking for certain things, and we always start an interview by saying, this is the sort of ability we're looking for, and what you want is for somebody to tell you that that's exactly what they're good at, and tailor their presentation to what you want. I mean, that's what we do when we're trying to get a job. You have to listen first. It's no good saying we can design you, a brilliant award-winning scheme if they want something, you know, just to get planning permission, you know, or whatever. You have to listen to what they want before you tell them what you can do for them. To be commercially successful, I think the main thing is to listen to what the client wants. I mean, unless you're a signature architect, you have to be willing and able to compromise. You know, in any generation, there's only a handful of buildings that have got a brilliant client, a brilliant architect, and go through the planning process. You've got to compromise the whole time. You've got to compromise with the client, with the planners, with building regs, you know, but I think there's a way of doing that, and it's a matter of how you go through that process, and knowing what to compromise on and what to hold out for. So I think the ability to negotiate your way through the building process and through the construction process is the key thing, really. But I think the two things you need more than anything is patience, particularly, and I think when there's 3 or 4 partners, you know, you all have to. Some people are probably more impatient than others at any one time and want to get to where they want to go quicker than others. But it's like a marriage. You have to work out, you know, how you're going to deal with this. You know, you're in a sort of relationship, a business relationship. You have to be patient, and you have to have, you know where you want to try and get to, and just have to be a bit more relaxed about how it's going to happen. And just being a bit of tenacity, I suppose, is in not letting the disappointments really get to you, and, you know, just keep trying. If one project doesn't work out, you know, the next one will. You know, and if you lose a competition, don't let it get you down.